I'm going to hand over to Anthony.
Thank you, Matthew. I've been excited to join such an insightful as well as important conversation. This is a much needed dialogue on the role of AI, and I'll preface my remarks by confirming that I'm excited about the power and potential of AI. And I looked at the brief on AI for education empowerment, and like I think we all need to do with
Anthony, we've just lost your audio. I don't know if that's something happened our end.
I'm not sure what happened, but
You're back. We can hear you again.
But the shift of changing how we think about the application of technology has always been the catalyst for success. It's going to be needed more now than ever before. As you have all talked about, the important challenges with navigating ethics, bias that's inherent in current AI generations, as well as what it means for skills changing and what that impacts the job market that is certainly changing. This has always been a case that's been important, but with the role of AI for sure. I'm going to talk about personalization, and I think I've been working in technology and education for over 30 years, and all of that journey has been to personalize our capabilities for learning. If you think about it, in the early days of technology access, when acquisition was the strategy summation for most school leaders and most school districts, where country ministers would say, my journey is to go from one PC for every 20 students to get to one PC for every 10 students. And then sometime in the future, we'll get to a place of one PC to every one student. And what we were thinking about throughout that time was the implications of the acquisition of devices. So the one that we were focused on more actively was the device, the technology. And we didn't think about what was really happening, and that was a real shift to personalized learning and what the implications on the other one, the student, the learner, will be. The same thing is absolutely true with the role of AI, and it's been true throughout history, where learning started primarily for a very elite and really a small percentage of the population in much more of a one-to-one or one-to-few model. And technology allowed us to scale, but we often scaled technology within the constructs of the consistent pedagogy and instructional modalities that we've had in the past. What we need to do now is actually think about what AI is going to enable with regards to a deeply personalized learning pathway for learners. And that does not just mean the ability for content to be custom and recognize the learner and the learner pathway, but really creating much more mixed modality instruction that really calls into question standardized assessments at any level, grade banding, as well as traditional classroom structures where learners are learning from maybe different groups of students clustered into class, with educators splitting their time between a group of 40 students in third grade mathematics and maybe 4 or 5 educators in a school doing that, to a world where the learners move around based on their current understanding into different modalities for learning and comprehension. I think this is the opportunity that is going to be enabled by AI. When we think about the reality of personalization and personalized learning and what it really means, it's important to recognize the research coming with regards to the role personalization is having on the teacher workforce. This is true globally, that the workforce for teachers is both at risk, retention is an issue, and teacher burnout significantly exceeds, for K through 12 educators, the collective burnout rate for all other professions combined. So research is telling that K through 12 classroom teachers have higher burnout than our law enforcement officials, firefighters, doctors, etc. And that is partly because, and research shows, that post-pandemic impact on individualized learning expectations has shifted and created more pressure on classrooms. In many ways, we have to harness where the pandemic put technology in terms of focusing on that individual pathway and just power it better with AI. As you look at data coming from the UNESCO report on teachers, there's not only significant demand, but growing pressure on existing population of teachers with regards to burnout. So this is a real issue. Obviously, individualized instruction is needed partly because of that reason, for sure, but we're also seeing it with regards to increasing needs for getting learners that direct connection that wasn't possible before. You think about generations of technology. In many cases, they're still doing it. They're using sticky notes to schedule students because it's been hard to move students to mixed modality instruction. It's been hard to have different instructional models fuel a dynamic and personalized calendar for kids. So we've used least common denominator impact. Before, the limitation was access to educators. For some time, it's been access to doing dynamic and personalized scheduling, as well as adaptive and personalized assessments. These things are now changed with regards to AI, and this is really where I think the challenge and conversations need to be. I would argue there'll be never less individualized instruction in a school level than exists right now, powered by the reality of technology and certainly the continued strife between an increasingly individualized learning path that students have in their own technology landscape that is challenged by this uniform model of learning that is provisioned by schools. And this is really where the role of AI can be best applied. But like every technology, all of this is about the human components. Many of you who have heard me speak know that throughout the role of devices and technology coming into schools, I would often challenge ministers, school leaders, even educators to think about this statement: your students are learning without you, and recognize how it made them feel, how they felt when that statement was applied. And unless they felt super excited and feeling about the potential of that unleashing of students to learn individually would have on their own instruction, they're not ready for transformation. That same mindset needs to be applied for how we think about AI. We're still dealing with lots of debates around the dynamics of ChatGPT and generative AI implications on learning and skills, as opposed to thinking broadly about what AI can enable. And I think the missing piece is how technology can help prioritize personalization and individualized instruction. When you think about artificial intelligence change, it's going to be big and it's going to be real. Yes, there's going to be change, but I think we have to think about where, what, how, and when that change can be applied. I will tell you that throughout my journey with technology and education, the problem has been consistent and it remains the case today. Throughout our time thus far, we've talked a lot about the instructional and pedagogy, the impact on classrooms and educators for AI, and I would argue that is precisely the wrong place to start, and what has been true for almost any role of technology throughout the dynamics of education. We started decades of technology acquisition, even starting through things like calculators and the foundations of what does it mean for teachers and students. And there's a lot of reasons for that. The people who build this technology are excited about the implications of helping learners and helping educators. We often have folks at the policy level and decision maker level who don't understand the range of implications of technology. So they will hope that amazing teachers, and they often do, will figure out how to way to bridge the gap between technology access and technology impact. As data has shown us throughout the last several decades, that impact has been minimal because we've often really not thought holistically about the systemic change technology can enable. This is what's happening with AI right now. 99% of the technology solutions that are being offered to the market in AI currently are related to helping teachers with lesson plan generation, with grading papers, providing feedback to students, or student support to help create and deliver content, whether it's generating images, supporting synopsises of text, etc., versus thinking about the broader implications on the back office. I would posit that when we think about AI, we initially, and this has been true, I think, for most technologies throughout human history, initially there's a fear of displacement. What does it mean for me in terms of my role, my skills, my capability? That's certainly true with educators today. We've often heard teachers being replaced by robots, which not only has been ridiculous, it's even more ridiculous in the world of AI because the magic that teachers deliver is needed more now than ever before. And that's shown with regards to data on student mindset, student mental health, as well as statistics on learning outcomes. But that fear of displacement is real, and we've got to really make sure that we get people beyond that mindset. The next phase that many people follow it, and this is true historically with technology, is that technology's growth impacts our skills and what it means to evolve and change our skills. This is true. Many of the comments made earlier about the workforce alignment, it's going to be true here. When students generate essays with ChatGPT, people fear about their ability to write essays and compose long-form narratives. We had the same challenge a decade ago with the rise of email, a few years ago with the rise of text messaging and emojis. And really not thinking about the broader implications of learning, but really worrying about specific skills erosion. The next phase is where most industries and most technologies languish, and that is a sort of an automation or a transition of traditional roles and methodologies powered by new technologies. And certainly I would say this is probably true broadly with the role of technology stop. And certainly true currently with the way AI is being thought of in many areas. The last phase, which really is the one that is very hard to get to, is rethinking the entire foundation with technology in mind. And I think that needs to happen certainly with AI. It's true with data, and data and AI, if not the same thing, are at least cousins or brothers and sisters. But that same journey has plagued us throughout the role of data, where the initial focus of data was just to collect and gather. Then it shifted to display. Then it shifted to use basic predictive algorithms to provide data access and insight of what was happening. But really rethinking organizational concepts with AI and with data has not happened broadly across education. Before we're debating ethics of AI and ChatGPT for essays, we've got to think about how schools can harness the data that they have access to and have been collecting for decades and be more effective with that data to drive personalization and empowered instruction for both educators and certainly for students. I'll use an analogy to help. Certainly every company on the planet is thinking about the role of AI as it relates to their business. Let's think about a business that all of us were going to distribute and manufacture or sell honey. We are in the production and manufacturing and selling of honey business, and we hear about the potential of AI, and we would absolutely be thrilled about what AI means. We would be thrilled about what AI means with regards to our supply chain. How do we connect with suppliers and distributors? How do we measure effectiveness of advertising and promotion? How do we hire and retain better, more effective people, do a better job of delivering job satisfaction and workplace satisfaction? We would be better connected to our customers, et cetera, et cetera. We would be excited about the role of technology there. But I would assure you that we would not have a meeting with the queen bees and discuss how they can better manufacture and produce honey. We would leave the magic of the honey production alone and prioritize all the ways in which technology can help the broader business. I would argue that in education, the honey is the instructional connection between learner and educator. And we start with the honey in most technology. This was true with devices. It was true with access to the internet. It was true with digital curriculum. We think about the role of the classroom and educator first, and I understand why, and I'm not criticizing it, but I would argue that there's tremendous impact AI can have on supporting better operations of schools, helping schools recruit and place better teachers with the environments, making sure that schools are operating more efficiently and effectively at a lower cost to put more money and budget across the environment. And while we do that, we're using data to help things like personalized schedule, mixed modality instruction. We are getting better and better at AI. AI is getting better and better at building and addressing a lot of the issues that have been already raised by our great speakers, to the point where the technology is more mature and ready to be consumed broadly by teachers in the classroom. You'll see early adopters, of course, but at a system level, we need to think about the holistic change first and not think about the classroom, because what we're going to get to is 10% of teachers are going to get excited and do effective jobs. The 90% of teachers are still going to struggle with the transition. And I think we need to think about the system shift first. I have great experience of that because I come from an organization, a very small organization, that has put the focus on AI for HI at the foundation, AI for human interaction. A company that does lots of tutoring, tens of thousands of tutoring sessions every single month. That's human to human. The role of AI did not impact tutoring at all in this company's journey. They actually thought about what AI can do to keep the tutoring as pure as possible, but do everything else to support it. And that includes doing very specific insight of placing students to tutors effectively, thousands of tutors who are placed directly to students at a specific learning need based on technology and AI automatically, building lesson plans to support tutors to keep the tutoring stuff. All of that can be done, but you can keep the focus on the main thing, that's the classroom instruction of our teachers, pure, while we get the system right. Thinking about hyper-personalized scheduling, thinking about optimizing back office, mixed modality instruction, maximizing the dynamics and capabilities and passions of our individual educators, shift to a mastery model, and then building out a deeply personalized assessment. And that's the journey. These are the bullets that I think our priorities should be as it relates to AI. I'm happy to contribute to the conversation. And I'm excited about the future with such great opportunity for dialogue.
Thank you so much, Anthony. There's loads of really key insights there. I'm just going to go into the questions, and one is trying to think about how do we balance using technology for personalized learning experiences, the benefit of that with the downside of maybe potentially students or staff themselves reaching burnout point and trying to keep up with this rapid change in technology. Or maybe even for the students, if things are very personalized, they might be getting feedback faster than ever before. How can they balance out getting rapid, intense feedback in a personalized environment?
Absolutely. Well, I think there's a couple of good points there. Certainly, what you find, and certainly there are examples in the U.S. where I'm actually in Japan now, but in the U.S. where you have, I've been to schools that have thousands of students. So let's say there's 5 or 6 8th grade math teachers teaching the population of students in that school. Those 5 or 6 teachers have different passions and skill sets. Some are better at lecture. Some are better at project-based learning. Some are better at one-to-one or group instruction. And what I'm suggesting is that we can identify those areas and create opportunities for all of those students in those 8th grade math classes to move around the curriculum to those individual learners. So you're putting learners and you're putting educators where they're best passionate. As it relates to technology and outcomes, what we're doing with technology now is collecting lots of data, but the data is not informing impact quickly enough. So it feels like data is creating an obstacle. Technology now, certainly with AI, has the ability to have data enable experiences, both content generation, curriculum, and schedules that are dynamic, that feel very intuitive and natural. So in the sort of the world that I posit, students are providing access to data that is fueling their calendar. It's fueling what they're learning based on their learning needs specifically. So I think it lowers the bar both on strain for teachers, because teachers are in the mode that they're excited and most comfortable in doing. And it's certainly, data well applied is invisible for learners. It just actually helps them, as opposed to reading the same chapter 1 that everyone in their classroom is doing. They're reading a chapter 1 that it reflects their specific learning journey. And I think that's the shift.
Piggybacking off that, someone's come in with a question about data in education and asking about where is the training for teachers available and how to process all this data, especially for school leaders? Because I remember my PGC when I was trained to be a teacher, there was never a course really on data So how can that need be fulfilled if we're getting new, richer, maybe more enhanced data through AI systems? How can we act on that quickly?
Yeah, that's why I brought up the point on data. I think we've gotten away way too long in the world of education with collecting data for data's sake, as well as using data to track progress, as opposed to understanding the data's impact to drive much more differentiated instruction. I don't believe that you need data scientists, because I'm not going to suggest that we should push charts and graphs to teachers. What I think what we should do at a system level is understand data's ability to build foundational connection to content materials, to placing students, to connecting students to the right educator, et cetera. So I think we've got to evolve our thinking on data, frankly, faster than our understanding of AI. We're not where we need to be, but I want to at least challenge that we should ask a broader set of questions. I go through many education workshops and presentations, et cetera, and I will tell you that the conversations around data as it relates to anything beyond the classroom or school operations, et cetera, is not happening. There's so much money that can be saved by operating schools more efficiently, more safely, more effectively across everything that may not be exciting for this conversation. Things like classroom, cafeteria management, transportation. These are the areas that other companies are using AI with robust and mature solutions. I'm curious why we don't start there and improve our operation systems while providing more budget for schools to operate effectively, to perhaps afford more teachers, and then get more mature about our own use of AI with our technology teams before we start in the classroom. I think that's something that I would love to see us talk about more, and that absolutely applies to the use of data.
A question coming about the personalization angle, about how do you see that balance between teacher-driven instruction and potentially AI-driven instruction? Where's that tipping point, and how can we get that right, or what might that look like?
Well, yeah, if you think about it right now, it's happening already. Learners are learning beyond the classroom today. They're learning through access to information on the browser. They're accessing increasingly AI chatbots that will become more pervasive across the environment. What I'm suggesting is that what's happened before is there's been a binary. There's classroom instruction that is sort of curated by the school, and then there's that individual path that is fundamentally different. The only time it was really fused was during the pandemic. And what I pointed out, the research is showing that rising teacher retention and teacher burnout is because of that challenge. Students' expectations shifted around their own ability to have a much more personalized path in the pandemic, and then they went back to classrooms in a traditional structure, and teachers are dealing with more fatigue because those expectations are not being met by traditional classroom instruction. What I'm suggesting is that teachers will be empowered this way because they're going to still drive and be at the core of the learner journey, but those modalities that are already happening are going to be recognized and curated by the school. I did a project several years ago with Microsoft called School of One. It was in New York City, where I live and very familiar with. This was 15 years ago technology, where the goal was to get kids an individual schedule every single day, so students are not dealing with the same learning challenge or a piece of content curriculum and struggling with that same classroom instruction. It's not going to get any better. When students are struggling with any piece of the curriculum, they move into a different modality. They may start off in a classroom, then they may go to small group instruction, then they may go to a computer lab, they may go to a project-based team. There were different modalities, part of the instruction mapped to the curriculum, and literally students would get a new schedule the day they showed up to school. 10 years ago, 10 years ago when this project happened, Microsoft engineers spent hours in the school after the day collecting the micro insight that was happening in the school to produce schedules. And literally it took that until that day, and students would get the schedule when they walked into the school. That can be done in fractions of a minute now with AI, where we can deliver personalized schedules to create this mixed modality instruction. And the educator is empowered throughout because they are excited to have these options for students, and they're tracking the progress throughout, and they're core to the whole journey. But it's basically having schools recognize what's already happening without them. And that's the piece that I think that we can do better with AI. And all these technologies are not decades old, these are years old. We didn't have the capabilities to do dynamic personalized schedules really 2 or 3 years ago. This is new capability. So a lot of our mindset around clustering classrooms, et cetera, has been around, frankly, the technology and availability of the options here. This is a very new thing, and it requires new thinking around what schools can look like.
So obviously the kind of thing you're speaking about and that level of personalization, even down to getting a new day planned for you, that involves probably interacting with tech throughout the day to capture that data. In some schools, they're nowhere near one-to-one in devices. There's people around the world, young people, even during the pandemic, that didn't have access to tech. What is the scope here for that divide just widening?
Yeah, and certainly equity around access to technology needs to be a priority if you're going to do any of this. But you can do, we have the ability to do mixed modality instruction with scheduling on the back end without access to technology. To differentiate, you're going to need personalization. That could come just with very clean feedback loops that come from educators. So we have access to teacher technology as well as scheduling technology on the back end. This can still be done without sort of the micro insight that's coming from students. Obviously, the more data that we collect, the more personal and more effective that pathway can be. But I think there's still ways to do a broad brush work with very limited technology investment. Again, we're talking about AI, so it assumes technology at some level. But I would suggest if you're thinking about and excited about AI, having a conversation, it's better and more effective, more cost-effective, more equitable to start on the back office at the teacher level than actually talking about the dynamics of classroom instruction as it relates to students supporting ChatGPT or teachers using it for lesson plans. That's going to be far more technology intensive than what I'm suggesting.
Okay. John, you're unmuted. Do you have any? Did you want to add something about? Is there anything about that drive for tech and equity?
I want to be positive, but pragmatically, I mean, there's a challenge here. You know, where are schools? And I'm not talking about the first adopters, the early adopters, the excited school teachers and schools. I'm talking about the general populace. You know, where are we with blended learning and teaching? Where are we? You know, post-pandemic. You know, huge challenge for lots of schools. In Australia, we've got this huge, you talked about the digital divide being exacerbated. It's continued. We can't do online assessments in regional, remote, very remote schools. You can't do any online stuff, you know, directly. So it's a huge challenge, and I think it's going to be a very go slow. So I mean, I'm trying to be positive in the mindset, but it's not as straightforward for many schools. And I think we've got to be careful about it. And teacher, you know, I'll go back to this notion of competencies, being explicit about shared language and developing teachers in their capacity to do this. I mean, it's a huge challenge, and
Could I just jump in, John? I totally agree with the challenge, which is why I'm suggesting that I can tell you that schools in Australia do not effectively use data to drive all the operation back end that could be powered by AI. And there's ways in which we can help schools operate more effectively, use their budget more effectively, recruit and retain teachers more effectively, and save money that they can use for instruction. Not sure what's controversial there. I'm talking about AI for operating like every other company is doing. Most companies start with technology innovation, and they don't say, let's figure out the product is going to change. They actually think about helping support that product's creation, being made more efficiently, going to market more efficiently, et cetera. I'm suggesting that our conversation on AI should start there because of the challenges that you're suggesting.
Yeah, and going to the data point too, Anthony, the challenge that we've been trying to address, and as I've worked with schools in the past few years, is around student performance data, where there is a lot of student performance data, and it's very hard for teachers and school leaders and middle managers in schools it's very hard for them to analyze and understand the data and make sense of it. We talk about assessment literacy. We talk about data literacy, that kind of literacy for teachers and for school leaders, and that's critical as well from a student performance, in terms of student performance data I'm talking about.